and welcome back to the Citizen channel. Hope you're all staying safe and well. And we have Book Club. Book Club's back. Yeah, we're going to have a look at a very well-known author, very well-known to City fans. His City credentials, well, they go without saying, but I will say some of them. Yeah, we're going to have a look at Kicked Into Touch, of course, the book that started it all off for Mr. Fred Eyre, who obviously has produced other books since this, many things, as well as being a footballer and a coach. He's also been a sports journalist centred around City, of course, a fan and a player. Yeah, albeit for a short while at City itself. Obviously, he's got great insight, of course, to that time. Yeah, which is even before I was born, he was sort of plying his trade and having a go. So he must be old, but all credit to the guy. So we're going to have a look at this Kicked Into Touch by Fred Eyre and read a couple of excerpts today from this book. Please, if you're on YouTube channel, push that subscribe button, push the bell notifications. These vlogs are coming out. And if you're already subscribed, please spread the word. Give me your support. Always appreciated. Give us your thumbs up. Give us your likes. Give us your retweets when I tweet anything. Much appreciated. Make an old City fan very, very happy. And it's great to share a little bit of time with you on these things. Right, we're going to start with our look at this book. The real legend, in my opinion, of many ways, of course, in my humble opinion. He's not a legend as in a player to win loads of trophies and stuff, just as a person, just as a City personality, if you like. He's a legend for me. So we're going to start with chapter 8, which is called Sent for Trial. Yeah, so say with these excerpts at different parts. So leading up to this, of course, Fred was devastated, found himself cast aside by Manchester boys. Yeah, I mean, I actually teacher offered trial. Come to my house, I was off poorly from school, and the PE teacher came and asked my father, and I wasn't even there. I was upstairs listening in. I was listening at the door, if you like, upstairs. Obviously, he wanted me to go to trials for Manchester boys, and my dad said it wasn't for me. He made that judgment for me. I mean, obviously, if I was good enough, I would have found my way there eventually. But I say I wouldn't have probably been good enough anyway. But that's another story of my life. But there you go. I don't kid myself that I would have been good enough to make the grade. But I was an okay right back, and that's where I played. How I went to play in goal later on, of course. But Fred was devastated. He played for Manchester boys, but then in a couple of key games, he was left out. And obviously, the likes of City and United and other clubs, that was their first stop for picking lads. So he'd missed out on being obviously a crucial game, and obviously all his chances he thought had passed him by. Obviously, they hadn't. So we'll start with chapter 8, which is entitled Sent for Trial. So I'll read from this. Blakely lads have always been blessed with a bit of spirit. Les Dawson, who lived behind the shops near me, struggled for years as a small-time comedian and piano player in working men's clubs all over the north of England and in dives and places of ill repute in Paris. But his Blakely spirit kept him plugging away until he finally hit the jackpot. The same with Bernard Manning. He's not always been big. He knows the meaning of the word graft, singing all night for the big bands and helping to run the family greengrocery business by day. My old hero, Wilf McGuinness, after scaling the heights for United and gaining a full England cap, plunged into the depths with a broken leg of such severity that it finally finished his soccer career as a player. But not before he'd made superhuman efforts to make a comeback. He typified the Blakely spirit. Now it was my chance to prove I was up there with the best of them in this department and nothing else. I'd done it before, even though I knew nothing about it at the time, when the medics thought I was a goner as a baby after I contracted double pneumonia and pleurisy. But even then, I was a true Blakely baby by pulling through with much nursing from anxious parents. Yeah, I mean, I lost a brother, obviously, was born before me with pneumonia. It's amazing how many children died of that in those days. But I was a big boy now, he says, and after the initial shock had worn off, I started eating again. It's a bit devastating, as you would be. I don't blame him. I threw myself into my training even harder than before. Yeah, so as I say, it was stay fit or try and stay fit. Obviously, you go on the park and a local park and play with his mates. But of course, he would try and do his own little. I did it myself in a house. I remember. I think I had kids at the time. I wasn't his age, of course, but he had his own little training circuit in his kitchen with his mum, trying to cook over him every night. He did this 15-minute thing of training in his kitchen, and she had to sort of try and dodge between her sometimes prone Fred, of course, as he did his 15-minute nightly fitness regime. He goes on to talk about cup finals and cup final day, a big thing as it was then for the kids. We loved it. It didn't matter who was in the cup final. It didn't matter if, me now, I won't watch it. I won't watch it. I've no interest in City out there. Of course, so in those days, in the late 50s, 60s, everyone watched it, and his uncle used to come round, apparently getting some shandy and some chocolate caramels. I used to love Merry Maids. I used to take Merry Maids to the matches when my kids were little. I remember that. And I remembered playing with his, well, he used to take them before he had the kids. So I used to take half a pound of Merry Maids to the matches. Anyway, let's get back to Fred. He remembered playing with his mates on the local hockey pitch after Nottingham Forest were beating Crystal Palace in the 1959 final. Yeah, I wasn't even born then, guys. So I wasn't around then. But he got a surprise while he was playing after this FA Cup final. He went out with his mates to play. He got a bit of a surprise. He carries on. I'll carry on his excerpt. The game was in full flow, he said. I remember I was feeling particularly perky when my dad appeared from the bushes. This was very strange. Sounds it. He never came down the clough. That's where they played. It must be something very important. You better get back up to the house. There's somebody from City to see you. The words I had waited 15 years to hear. It was music to my ears. I grabbed my coat and dashed back home. Enjoying a cup of coffee with my mother was the figure of Harry Godwin. A check overcoat, smart shirt and tie, a fine representative of the club. Harry was a super person, ideal for the job of a scout for a club like City. And to make things even better, a Blakely man. He has been responsible for signing nearly all City's young stars over the years. Peter Barnes, Gary Owen, Mike Doyle, Neil Young, Dave Wagstaff, Paul Power, Glenn Pardo, Alan Oakes, a host of others who went on to become top names in the game. Surely with a record like that, he can be forgiven for making one mistake, because now he's wanted to sign me. Or was he? While I was wondering where my best pen was, I wanted to sign in my bestest writing. Harry was quietly pouring a little cold water on my enthusiasm. The majority of my former teammates had now been offered ground staff contracts with big clubs. Bob Smith, Dave Latham and Ernie Ackerley had signed for United, Ken Fletcher and Neil Young and for City and so on. But due to the fact that you weren't in the Manchester boys team for such a long spell, Harry went on, the best we can offer you is a trial. A trial, bloody hell, I thought. I'm going to have to prove myself all over again, and I knew inwardly I was not at my best when I was subjected to that sort of pressure. I was able to perform much better when I was at ease with the world, but I had two choices: take it or leave it. So I took it, shook Harry's hand at the door and watched him walk briskly up Clough Top until his muscular frame disappeared around the corner at the top. As I turned back into the house, I was met by huge smiles and grins of well done by Mum and Dad, only for me to ungratefully return them with a grim, tight-lipped, flipping trial. The day of reckoning came when I had to report at 6 p.m. to Shoreview Field, Chatham Road, Urmston, for my trial on August the 4th, 1959. So I was a month-old then, Fred. It was a glorious day. Well, probably was for me, but I don't remember. The sun shone incessantly the whole day long. We were in the middle of our summer holidays. Everybody was outdoors, breathing in the glorious fresh air, except me. I stayed in bed the whole day, reading, conserving all my energy, quite wrongly reasoning that I would unleash it all on the other unsuspecting trialists that evening. Chatham Road was 2 bus rides and a train journey away, but I seemed to be there in no time. I walked in with my gear to be met by the first of a breed of men who were to play an important part in my soccer life in the future, the coach. His name was Jim Meadows. We'll come back to him in a minute. And he was the first in a line of 82 coaches whose job it was at one stage or another to shape my career. That, together with my 29 managers, makes a hell of a lot of bosses. Certainly does make a lot of bosses. Yeah, and then he goes on to chapter 9, which is simply called Coaches, and he goes on to talk about some of the coaches and some of the words of wisdom they used and words of non-wisdom they used. And of course, before he gets back to this day and this trial, and of course, a certain Jim Meadows. So we'll pick it up again when he gets to meet Jim Meadows. And it tells us a little bit about him. Meadows came to City as a right winger from Southport, was successfully converted to fullback and was such a success that he gained an England cap. Unfortunately, he sustained a serious knee injury in the 1955 Cup final defeat by Newcastle United, which cost City the Cup, and his playing career came to an abrupt end. Now he was in charge of the young kids, and I took an immediate liking to him, but like most of the other lads, I was a bit frightened of him. He was always very good to me, but I made sure I never stepped out of line. My fears in this direction were confirmed when when later in the season David Shawcross, a highly talented wing half whose career ironically went the same way as Jim's, England under-23 captain, a serious knee injury at Molineux after colliding with the Wolves keeper Malcolm Finlayson, ruined his career, had the nerve to give Jim a bit of back chat, which wasn't exactly to Jim's liking. Shoresy was in the bath at the time, wallowing like a contented hippo, lathering himself with soap when Jim appeared in the doorway after hearing his remark. Shoresy took one look at Jim's face, leapt from the bath, ran through the dressing room, down the players' tunnel, completely naked, soap sud streaming from his body, across the pitch with Jim racing in pursuit, his bad leg temporarily forgotten, brandishing his fist like a side of ham. Shoresy's fitness was the key factor, together with his fear. It gave him a bit of extra impetus as he ran the length of the field past startled ground staff men who were casually forking the pitch, over the wall, up the terraces, then he clambered up the rickety steps into the sanctuary of the scoreboard and locked himself in. Jim finally arrived on the scene and positioned himself at the foot of the ladder to wait until the shivering naked Shoresy decided to give himself up. It was a funny sight to see Dave's head poking through the squares where usually the half-time scores were displayed, trying to figure a way out. Jim 1, Shoresy 0. But this evening back at Ermston, I was spoken to by a coach for the first time in my life, and I was already convinced that I would go home a better player. We sat round Jim, cross-legged in a circle on the floor. He looked like an Adonis standing over us in his blue tracksuit, and his first words will live with me forever. He said, "You can all sit closer to me than this. I got no shit on my shoes." Not a bad start. Things can only improve after that. Things did improve. I settled down well. I always found Jim a hard taskmaster, but it was always fair with me, which was to be a rarity with coaches and managers, as I was to find out over the years. There were 1,000 trialists passing through the dressing rooms of Chatham Road in the next 6 weeks, of which just two, were signed as amateurs. One of them left 2 weeks after he signed, so that left just me. A 1 in 1,000, and it was a never-to-be-forgotten day when I signed, leaning on the window ledge of Harry Godwin's house on Victoria Avenue in Blakely. It had to be. Still not a full ground staff contract, but a start. Maybe if I impressed in the games, I would get a contract. Well, there you go. Fred Eyre, and say just little excerpts, and I would dip in and out of this as with the other books in this City Book Club. Hope you enjoyed it. If you, obviously, this book is still easily available, but for just £2 plus pennies at very well-known internet sites. So if you shop around, you can still well worth it. It was republished. That says, I think this is a republished version I've got here. This one, obviously, it's been republished over time. £3.50. Get it. Say you can get cheap as chips on certain internet sites. A bit less than that. So why not? Why not have that? It's great for young and old fans, and it's very funny indeed. Of course, Fred Eyre. That's one of those. Just a great journalist. As I say, I do my match reports, and when I'm looking at games in the 90s, obviously Fred Eyre's the guy writing for the Manchester Evening News in those match reports, stuff like that, and he's still to this day knocking around, a great bloke. And as I said, for me, a legend, even though not as a player who's winning trophies, but just as a all-round City guy. And hope you enjoyed that anyway. I'm sure we'll be back to read that and one or two of his other books he's put out over the coming months and years, I hope, anyway. So I hope you enjoyed that, guys. Let me know any memories you've got. Blakely, I don't know Blakely too well. If you know Blakely, you know those places mentioned, and I think Victoria Avenue. Of course, I know Victoria Avenue. I've been down there many times. I think it's a big road. Is it quite a big road? I'm not sure. Anyway, I have been in and around that area, but if you're familiar with it, and say I certainly know Bernard Manning, and obviously I certainly know the other Bernard Manning. Well, I've actually did a couple of interviews with Bernard Manning back in the late 80s for a project I was doing. So, of course, other people like Les Dawson, who I believe was a City fan as well. I say I've no visual proof of that, but a great bloke, Les Dawson, fantastic. Well, I hope you enjoyed that anyway, and hopefully you'll join me again for another City excerpt from another in the City Book Club, from another City either player or someone linked with City, or a fan, of course, over the coming months. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know anyway your memories. Thanks for watching. Please, until we meet again, I only ask one thing, don't I? Please stay safe, everyone. Come on, City. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.